Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a sports betting perspective. With pro handicappers Alex B. Smith and veteran sports writer Jimmy Murphy. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron. Pro handicappers Alex B. Smith and veteran.
Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio. Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Absolutely excellent, and great to have you with us here on this edition. So it's preseason for me too. I'm forgetting what Sean did. It's the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. It is the season premiere, if you will, of the Ice Guys. Season number 6, if you could believe that. Absolutely amazing stuff that we've been doing this now for 5 full years, and this is now going to be our 6th full season here with the Ice Guys. Looking forward to it, as always. Joined once again by my 2 familiar colleagues. We'll have Jimmy Murphy along momentarily as well, but of course, Alex B. Smith, you know him, you love him, and great to have him as always. This is now going to be, I think, out of those 6 years, I think we've been on them for 5 of those 6. Or 4 of those 5, I should say, previously. So it has been absolutely outstanding to be working with these 2 gentlemen, and Jimmy's with us now as well. And we're just excited and fired up for a brand new NHL season. And what I'm more excited about than anything, guys, is it's a normal season, or at least close to a normal season again. 82-game regular season. That's something we can all look forward to. We can look forward to all teams playing every team this year. You're not playing the same team 3 games in a row. You're not doing any of that stuff that we saw last year. It's going to feel like an actual, real, legit NHL season this year. And I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about. So, Alex, let's bring you in. First thoughts for a brand new season. Great to be starting a brand new season of the Ice Guys right here in conjunction with THPN.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be back with you guys. Excited for, be on with everybody watching. And it's just, great to have hockey back, and it's close to normal schedule. Like I said, we got a full 82 games. Of course, we will have a break in between in February for the Olympics, but we're going to have a long slate of hockey with that in mind, and I'm looking forward to it. We got a 32nd team now. We finally have the Seattle Kraken coming into the league, so everything's all balanced as far as that goes. We got our regular divisions. We're going to have our travel spots like we usually talk about and things of that nature. So I'm just excited for hockey to be back, and excited to be talking about it with you guys all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. And we bring in Jimmy Murphy as well. Jimmy, it's now been a few years for you being part of the team as well. And looking forward to this season, and lots to look forward to because, again, it feels like we're getting back to normalcy again.
Yeah, for sure, guys. I mean, it's just it's definitely had that feel, obviously, with having a preseason and a real training camp, and seeing cuts made and all this. It's been a whirlwind, guys. I mean, really, it's been hard to kind of keep a grasp of where we are in terms of time frame of our lives too, because our lives revolve around the hockey season, and you guys also cover other sports as well. So, to have that sort of start to slowly fall back into place, I think helps everybody, not just the players, but also us media or handicappers that cover the game. So I'm pretty psyched. I think it's going to be a great season. And we talked about this last year at the end of the season, I'm sure we'll get into it now. I'm just interested to see what happens in the first few months here in terms of injuries and where players are at, because these guys are human. And that's one thing we're going to have to remember here early on, that they've played a lot of hockey in a short time, especially the teams that went deep into the playoffs. So that's something I'm going to really focus in on off the get-go here.
Exactly. And of course, we were already seeing in preseason as well, a crackdown on cross-checking happening across the board. And you're seeing a penalty parade here in these preseason games. That's the one thing I've definitely noticed, and it'll be interesting to see if that translates over to the regular season. There's definitely going to be an adjustment period because look, they've mandated it, they've said it, that they're going to try to come down on every little hack and whack that's going on to someone's back right in front of the net. Those net front battles now, all of a sudden, you're not going to be able to get away with just cross-checking a guy 7-8 times, which I've seen people do, by the way. It's just one cross-check after another. If they see the first one, they're calling you now. 2 minutes for cross-checking. So that is definitely going to be something where the players are going to have to make that adjustment, and just, you got to find other ways to clear out the front of the net. If you're a defenseman, you're going to have to get body position. You're going to have to tie up the stick. You're going to have to do other things besides just cross-check a guy like 3 or 4 times in a row, because you're going to be sitting in the sin bin if you do that. based on the rule changes that have been garnered here this year. So keep an eye on that too. We'll have to see. I'm going to definitely keep an eye on frequencies and penalties per game. Is a stat that I'm really going to try to track early in the year. How many more penalties per game are we getting because of this harsher enforcement, if you will, on cross-checking? It's going to be interesting to see what that's going to be like going into the year. All right, so today, guys, this is the first of 2 conference preview shows. We're going to do the Eastern Conference today, and then we will do the Western Conference tomorrow. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference, and we'll start first with the Atlantic Division, and then we'll do the Metro after that. We're going to right now we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to try to touch on something from every team. We've got 16 teams in the East, 16 in the West. But what we're going to do is with the Atlantic Division, we're going to group the bottom feeders, in the same kind of discussion here. Buffalo, Detroit, and Ottawa. Those are the 3 teams that are most likely to bring up the rear this year in the Atlantic Division. For me, it's just which of these teams I'm going to talk about can you possibly make some money with and be that value team? And it's not a surprise because we kind of hinted that when we were on over the summer following free agency when we did that show over the summer, that it's not going to be a surprise that my answer of those 3 teams, I think, is the Detroit Red Wings. It's not going to be Ottawa last year was kind of that team that outperformed people's expectations with just the hard work ethic, their ability to score goals, which overcame their defensive and goaltending issues, which sadly for Ottawa is probably something they're going to have to overcome again this year, the defensive and goaltending issues that they have, because certainly when you look at their goaltending, I'm not at all sold still yet on Matt Murray. In fact, some of the best goaltending last year was from guys other than Matt Murray for that Ottawa team. But getting back to Detroit, the reason why I think this team's got the potential to be that, that lower tier team in this Atlantic Division, to be that team you can make some money with, is because of the upgrade they've made, obviously, in goal. Alex Nedeljkovic, I couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. We were basically flabbergasted on this very show over the summer, talking about how stunned we were that Stevie Yzerman was able to get him from the Carolina Hurricanes. But he is an instant upgrade from anything they've had in goal recently. You look at up front, Philip Zadina really showed you a lot late down the stretch last year, which was good to see. Dylan Larkin, has had some injury issues, but we know he's a very good number 1 center. Robbie Fabry seemed to get a little bit of new life with the Red Wings. Nemesnikov ended up being a nice addition. Adam Ernie gave you some offensive punch. Of course, now they have Pius Suter, formerly of the Chicago Blackhawks as well. I think is a developing young player that can get better. I like some of the moves they made on D as well. They've got Ronick, they've got DeKaiser, Nick Leddy, great veteran addition on that blue line for Detroit. Mark Stahl, they bring him in as well in the offseason. A good veteran presence for a younger team. And, Troy Stetcher, the guy you don't think of as someone that moves the needle. I actually like the way he played for a big part of last year as well for this Detroit team. So, and you look at them, they've got that ability to just compete in games, be able to score enough. Their blue line, I think, is capable enough, especially with the veteran additions. And then you bring in Nedeljkovic. And to me, they're going to be that team, kind of like Ottawa was last year, guys, in this division, that takes teams by surprise, especially if those teams maybe take Detroit for granted. I think the Red Wings are probably going to be that team that's going to be that profitable group. Buffalo, forget it. It's one of the worst rosters you'll ever see. In fact, we'll get to Arizona tomorrow. They're in competition, actually, with Buffalo in that category in terms of one of the worst rosters you'll ever see for an NHL team going into a season. But Buffalo certainly is. Now, they're apparently closing in on some kind of conclusion or finality to this whole Jack Eichel saga, closer to getting him moved. But still, it's just without him now, where are you going to go offensively? That's a question mark. I mean, that they're asking a lot of Jeff Skinner to bounce back after a terrible year. Victor Olofsson to score at 5-on-5. We know he can score on the power play. Scoring at 5-on-5 would be nice, though, and he hasn't done that enough. Casey Middlestat, I thought he played good down the stretch, but 82 games, you need consistency. Anders Bjork, formerly of the Bruins, Jimmy knows him well. Definitely we'll see if he can adapt to a top 6 forward role. Rasmus Asplund has shown you a couple little glimpses here, but the blue line, Dahlin has not progressed. Joka Harju is average. Hag, they get him from the Flyers. Nothing to write home about. Colin Miller, solid, but then you get Pissick, Butcher. Just not a depth-laden blue line by any stretch. And goaltending, it's Dustin Tokarski, I should say, and Craig Anderson. I'm saying it in the Don Cherry vein. Dustin Tokarski, and Craig Anderson. And it's not a great goaltending tandem by any stretch. And then you look at Ottawa. I like the team up front, but they're still very suspect defensively. And they're also got a couple of key injuries early in the year. Brady Tkachuk, Colin White. So keep an eye on that. He won't be ready for the start of the season, Tkachuk. And now Colin White's out for 4 to 6 weeks for the Sens. The blue line, once you get beyond Chabot and Zaitsev, really a drop-off there. And then, of course, you got Matt Murray in goal. You don't know what you're going to get one night to the next. And Gustafsson and Forsberg behind him. So when you look at these bottom feeders in the Atlantic, guys, the only one I'm really interested to back on a semi-regular basis is the Detroit Red Wings. Alex, what's your thoughts on the basement dwellers in the Atlantic?
Yeah, like I said, the only team that would be worth taking some shots with as a dog on a given night would be the Detroit Red Wings. Like I said, Nedeljkovic being in net, that is huge for them. This is a team that's needed goaltending for quite some time now. They're finally able to get that, along with, like I said, the young top 6 forwards they have. They're definitely going to disrupt some things. They'll probably, be a team to look at early, and they'll start fading down the middle of the stretch. Like I said, they won't be anywhere near playoff contention in my book, at least not this year. But they're doing things the right way as far as from an organizational standpoint. Ottawa, probably the same thing. There'll be some spots here or there to grab, but I would more than likely be looking at totals with Ottawa as opposed to looking at sides. Especially if they can't get things rolling with their goaltending. Like you said, that was a complete mess last year. If Philip Gustafsson is your number one, then you got some issues in net. And then, of course, like you said, Buffalo, just historically bad it's going to be. And you think about all the bad seasons we've seen from Buffalo over the years where they were tanking and trying to rebuild, and now they're back in tank mode. This one's going to be pretty bad. Like you said, you got Tokarski and Craig Anderson at 40 years old as your 2 goaltenders. Aaron Dell is your third. He ended up getting put on waivers, and now he's cleared. He's going to be in Rochester. This is a team that's going to be giving up a lot of goals. The only way you'll even be able to attack them, and we'll talk about Arizona tomorrow, you can't even look at a side. You'd have to be playing the team total over against them or playing, full game first period totals with them. So those are the ways I have those 3 teams circled. But like I said, they won't be making any noise at all within the division or the conference.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we didn't want to. When you're bad, you don't deserve your own segment of this preview show to talk about you. That's why I'm doing Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit all in once here. We'll do that in the Metro too with the bottom feeders there when we talk about them. But Jimmy, we kind of in the same direction here. If there's one team that might surprise and step up and outperform people's expectations of this group of 3, it's Detroit. Are you in the same boat as us, thinking that way? Jimmy, what a way to start. You're muted.
Hey, it's the preseason still.
Yes, correct.
No, I'm in complete disagreement, actually, guys. I don't know if you guys recall that if there may have been 2 more games in the regular season last year, the Ottawa Senators make the playoffs. They were the hottest team in the last 25 games of the season last year. And that's not for no reason. That's because they are a team on the rise. I think they're leagues ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Red Wings made some progress. I like some of the moves they brought, some of the veterans they brought in. I think they'll help the guys. I think they improve. But I think, I'm telling you right now, I don't consider the Ottawa Senators a bottom feeder at all. I'm telling you right now, I'm going on record saying the Ottawa Senators will make the playoffs this year.
There you go. Liking Ottawa to make that
now, if they don't sign Brady Tkachuk, then maybe you come back to me there. But, as long as that gets done, I'm saying the Ottawa Senators are going to the playoffs.
All right.
And you can get some good money on that.
Interesting. I like the boldness of that. Fascinating. No, they definitely worked hard. They maximized everything they got from their talent last year, the Ottawa Senators. There's no question. The one concern is that now they're back in a regular Atlantic division, and you've got still Tampa Bay, you've got Boston, you've got Florida, you've got Toronto, you've got Montreal. I think could fall back a little, but they're still, going to be.
They own Montreal. Remember that too, guys. They only lost to Montreal one time. They've already kicked their ass once in the preseason this year. So I count Montreal as an easy 3 wins at least for the Ottawa Senators with the way things have gone between those 2 clubs.
They did. They always played Montreal really, really difficult this past season. There's no question about that. All right, we continue on now for the rest of the Atlantic Division, and we'll try to go team by team through each one. We'll go to Montreal right now. And for them this year, obviously, we know last year was the incredible run to the Stanley Cup final. But usually when a team, surprises, gets to the Stanley Cup final the way they did, a lot of times there's regression the very next year. It wouldn't surprise me to see that. And let's not forget, what Montreal ended up losing from last year. I mean, Philip Deneau, say what you want about how he was not much of an offensive force for them, but he was absolutely outstanding in terms of his defensive play. I mean, it was not hyperbole saying his shutdown abilities were some of the best we've seen in a very long time. You think of some of the guys he went up against in the playoffs and shut down: Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner for Toronto, some of those Winnipeg snipers like Scheifele and Wheeler and company. There with the Kyle Connor with the Jets in the second round. The Vegas top players didn't do a whole lot against Montreal, and Deneau was a big reason for that. And they finally went up against Tampa Bay, and that's probably when the defense struggled a bit. But because Tampa Bay's just got such great four-line depth, it's difficult. You can't have Philip Deneau out there against every line for the entire game. It's impossible. But just having that strong face-off defensive presence, not having that anymore, for Montreal, it's going to hurt a little bit. There's no question about that. And I talked last year about Montreal with the four defensemen, Sherratt and Petrie and Weber and Edmondson, how big those four were and how much they were better than everybody else on that blue line. Well, Weber now is out for good and may not play another game, to be honest, in the NHL. They just announced that Joel Edmondson's going to miss some time at the beginning of the year as well. So all of a sudden, two of those big four, they're not going to be around. You're just down to Petrie, Sherratt, Savard, and Romanov, who's very capable. He could be very good in time, but, they're now going to ask him to be in a top four defensive role. And this is a guy that for some reason, it took Ducharme forever in the playoffs last year to finally give that guy a role and some time on the ice and play in a game. And now he's going to be a top four defenseman, but likely for this team. And then you've got a weak third pair with Kulak and Weidman. And Weidman, by the way, hasn't had a good preseason for Montreal. He's made some blunders defensively. So that blue line looks a little weaker. Now, Carey Price, we hear today, is going to be gone for at least a month. And we certainly wish him and his family all the best. Mental health is a serious thing. And if you got to tend to that and deal with it, you should. They're making the right decision there. They're going to give him all the time he needs. But from a hockey standpoint, that means a lot of Jake Allen in net for the Canadiens, who's very capable, but he's obviously going to play a lot more games. And then you're going to have to rely on either Caden Primo or Samuel Montembeault, picked up from the Panthers in the offseason, to be your backup. And they're going to have to start games for you. This is now an NHL where you need your backup to go start games for you and also play well. And it's not always the case. I don't think you can guarantee that with Primo and Montembeault right now for Montreal. I see this as a sneaky over the total team with their game totals, believe it or not, Montreal, because I think their offense, they're going to be able to score. Toffoli, Suzuki, Caulfield. I think Caulfield is going to have a big year this year. You already have Zegras on Twitter predicting 40 goals this year for Cole Caulfield. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think it can be done, especially because it looks like he's going to play on a top line with Suzuki and Toffoli potentially. Jonathan Drouin, look, nobody's ripped on this guy more than I have the last couple of years, but he did have some mental health struggles. He says he's clear of that. And I'm willing to say, you know what? Maybe that played a part in why you were so bad last year and why you have struggled the last 2 years. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, if he has a bad year this year, I don't want to hear anything about mental health struggles and I'm feeling tough and I'm feeling bad. I'm going through things. I don't want to hear it this year. If he sucks this year, he's just not playing well and he's not living up to his expectations. But if he does turn it around, putting that behind him, and look, he's had a nice preseason so far, Drouin. I'll give him that. He's making plays. He's a lot more emphatic. You see him making plays on the ice now. He's going to the front of the net. Passing's been good. He has definitely been good in preseason. So that is a good bit of news for the Montreal Canadiens because they need Drouin to bounce back for them. They bring in Dvorak after losing Jesperi Kotkaniemi to Carolina to play, and he'll probably play with Josh Anderson. Armia, Evans, and Gallagher's a good third line. Lehkonen, Perreault, the veteran Matthew Perreault, solid, depth fourth line center type of signing, and Alex Belzile, who's had a nice preseason. So I think Montreal will score, but I think their defense is going to be worse, potentially a lot worse. And, the goaltending is up in the air a little bit. So I think they'll be involved in some higher scoring games. Alex, what's your outlook here? Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, they're probably one of the teams that obviously, they had a magnificent run in the postseason. And you look at that Canadian division, how things were as far as travel goes. They were the only teams that had cross-country travel essentially throughout the shortened year. So they probably feasted on that a little bit. And there's, some teams that we'll talk about in Canada that, may have a drop-off or a bounce back related to having the regular travel once again. And so with that being said, Montreal, this is a tough division, a tough conference. I don't see where exactly they're going to be able to make the postseason again, but they are going to make some noise as far as the team to back, game to game. They're going to win some games. They're definitely going to score some goals. And like I said, without having Carey Price for at least the first month, if not longer, they definitely are probably going to be susceptible to giving up some goals as well. Remember, last year, we liked this team to make some noise in the East because of that 1-2 punch of Carey Price and Jake Allen. Now having Jake Allen as your number one, and like I said, Caden Primo or Sam Montembeault is the number two, that may only hold up for a little bit, but things could get out of hand if Price isn't ready by American Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy, Montreal, you went from swearing against betting on them to riding them throughout the playoffs. You changed your tune pretty quickly once we saw Montreal starting to get red hot in the playoffs and knocking off the Leafs. Now, how do you feel about them? You've had what times you've said, I'm not betting on them, and then times you've been riding them. How do you feel about them now?
Well, I just quickly before I get into the Habs there, guys, I want to go back just to my Ottawa pick there too. You mentioned the goaltending there, Alex. One thing to keep an eye on, and I know somebody in that Ottawa Senators organization that has a say in things. I've been told to keep an eye on Matt Sogard early on in the season. So if there's any struggling going on between the pipes there, they're not going to be afraid to call this hot prospect up. I mean, this kid is 6'7", 220. He ripped it up in his 7 games in the AHL last year, went 7-0. They're very high on him, so that could change that dynamic as well. So that's something to keep on. And by the way,
for a goalie,
they are plus 1,200 to make the playoffs. So throw $5. Who cares? What do you have to lose? But as for the Habs, guys, I'm with you. I think one of the biggest things that surprised me was I always felt that they were pretty strong on the wing, and yet they went out and got Mike Hoffman. Now, I think that's a lot because, Bergevin wanted him the previous free agent season. Before that, he tried to trade for him. So he's had his heart set on Hoffman. So that didn't surprise me he did that. But I think he's going to regret not upgrading at the center position. I know they went out and they got Dvorak there. But, guys, I watched a lot of those Coyotes games last year. And I know he's been clicking. He looks good in the preseason. But I watched a lot of those Coyotes games, and he disappears for a while. He's a consistent player in that he goes 15 games being good, 15 games really sucking. And they can't afford that for all the reasons you just said. They need their second line center to be consistent, especially if anything ever happens to Suzuki there. I just think they really need another center, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bergevin tries to do that. But right now, obviously, all eyes are on the goaltending, the Carey Price news. And look, I send my best to him. And again, you mentioned Drouin as well. I really respect and admire these players for coming out publicly and speaking about mental health and doing what they have to do to get themselves better. I think we should all follow that lead. But yeah, the defense is an interesting one there, right? I think if Edmondson is healthy, I feel a lot better about this Montreal team right now, even with the goalies being Allen and Montembeault. I still would feel a little better. He was that much a great part of that defense last year. And of course, they're missing Weber already. So they could be in for a rough first quarter of the season. And, we always look at the American Thanksgiving to see where a team's at. And if they have a legit shot at the playoffs, they're going to have to really fight hard and claw hard to survive this first quarter and be in position there to have a shot at the playoffs come Thanksgiving. I just don't see it right now unless they make a move.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first month, you're right, bet against team. I could see it with Montreal. Not saying they can't turn it around and make the playoffs, but you're right, that first month could be a struggle. Yep, yeah, exactly. And they've done that last year. It's not like they lit the NHL world on fire the first few months of the year. In fact, that was the worst part of the year for them was early in the season. So you might see a slow start here for Montreal coming into this year. All right, let's get to the Boston Bruins. Jimmy covers them on a daily basis. Lots of things to consider here with the Bruins. It's a team that's kind of in transition a little bit, if you will. Did bring back, of course, Taylor Hall in the offseason after he played largely well for the Bruins after they acquired him. And of course, you've still got to, deal with Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak, still going to be one of the best top lines in the NHL. But now it's always a question of the center spot after Bergeron. You've got Charlie Coyle, Eric Haula, and Tomas Nosek, and Studnicka. Boy, I mean, that's pretty thin down the middle there all of a sudden for this Boston Bruins team. Nick Foligno, nice veteran addition, marred by injuries in his stint with the Leafs late last year. Never really got on track with Toronto. Just wasn't on the ice enough to really make much of an impact for them last year. Jake DeBrusk, the enigma that he is, we know he's capable of lighting it up, and we know he's capable of being in these awful droughts and slumps. So what are you going to get from Jake DeBrusk this year is a big question mark. When you look at this blue line, look, the Jets weren't enamored in Derek Forbort, and now he's on Boston's blue line. So, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes with McAvoy, with Mike Riley and Carlo and Grzelcyk and Clifton. We'll see. But all of a sudden, the blue line's got some question marks a little bit. I like Carlo, I like McAvoy, Grzelcyk. But after that, there's some question marks with this Bruins team on the back end. And, of course, this year in terms of the goaltending, Tuukka Rask's MIA right now, and for at least indefinitely. So you're going to start the year with Jeremy Swayman and, of course, Linus Ullmark, who came over, of course, from the Buffalo Sabres. And Ullmark's been capable, but again, and keep in mind, he's been on a bad hockey team, for the last several years with that Sabres group. At least Boston's you're not going to be facing quite as many, difficult, high-quality shots on a nightly basis with Boston compared to Buffalo. Even though that Bruins D might step back a little, it's still better than whatever Buffalo's putting out there. So that should benefit Ullmark. I've seen enough of Swayman, Jimmy, to think he can be pretty good in time, but we're talking about more responsibility and duty for him now moving forward because I think it's going to be split down the middle. I would think Swayman and Ullmark, they're both probably going to get a lot of the net this season for Bruce Cassidy. So it's an interesting team. It's one of those teams I don't want to say bet on them at the beginning of the season. It's not a team I want to say for sure bet against them. More than anything, it is a wait and see approach that I'm going to take with the Bruins because I think it could go either way with them. They could surprise and be pretty good. It wouldn't surprise me too if they're not very good to the point where they're struggling just to make the playoffs this year. I'm serious. I mean, I think the floor is that low for Boston that they could just be in a fight of their lives to make the playoffs if things don't go well this year for them. Alex, your thoughts on Boston?
Yeah, like I said, I think, I thought this was going to happen at some point in time. Obviously, this core is aging a bit. They have some young pieces that they can plug in and play, but, you just kind of wonder with how tough of a stretch they've played. We talk about how teams that, played prolonged postseasons over the years. Where Boston's one of those teams. They're a perennial contender every year. So they've played a lot of extended hockey. You wonder when will it catch up to them, and this could possibly be that year, especially, like I said, without having Tuukka Rask in net. We'll see how Ullmark does. Like I said, he's been on a bad team for years, so maybe he is a capable number one goalie that can, bring you some wins with a good, at least a better team, if not a good team. And like I said, I really like Jeremy Swayman. I think the drop off between them, I have them in my goalie rankings, pretty much just a 5-cent drop off. So as of right now, I would be fine if the Bruins said Swayman was the number one guy. I would be just as comfortable betting on them as I would with Ullmark in that. And like I said, that could change at any point. But like I said, the talent that they have to face right away, the physicality and nature in which they play, can they hold that up for another full season? That's a question you're going to have to ask for a lot of teams. It was 70 games and then 56 games all within the last 18, 19 months. We're going to see teams wear down at some point. Some teams might start off rusty out of the gate. Some teams might fade late. I think Boston might be a little bit rustier starting than they will be finishing.
Yeah, definitely valid points there with what we could expect from the Bruins. The biggest question, too, and Jimmy obviously have some good opinions on this point, too. Is Charlie Coyle ready to be a number 2 center? Is he really ready? Like, he had his lowest output in terms of goals last year, 16 in terms of points last year of his career, since way back when. And this is a guy, like, if you're going to be a second-line center, you got to produce. You got to give you some offense a little bit. Is he going to be able to do that? And, of course, now he's thrust into the second-line center role. David Krejci decided to go back home to the Czech Republic, and that's put Charlie Coyle in this number 2 center spot. And there's going to have to be some production. There's going to have to be some results from him at that spot offensively, playing alongside, it looks like, Taylor Hall and Craig Smith You know, he's going to have to find a way to elevate offensively in a big way, because you can't have 6 goals and 16 points if you're going to be a number 2 center in the National Hockey League. That just can't happen. So there's going to be I think Charlie Coyle's play is going to have a big part in determining the success or failure of the Boston Bruins season this year. Jimmy, you know this team obviously very well. What do you think going into the year, Boston Bruins?
Well, I'll start right there. Look, I've been saying it for years now. I mean, because people just don't like to address that elephant in the room, right? But I mean, it's no secret for the last couple of years that Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci are getting older here. And, there was a lot of talk over the last year and a half to 2 years that Krejci would bolt for the Czech Republic and finish his hockey career there. I don't understand why the Bruins seem the most surprised out of anyone about this. And that to me shows a lack of preparation, a lack of just addressing not only the present, but the future. They have failed to go out and get a bona fide number 1 or number 2 center. They've had their chances. I know they've been in on Eichel and stuff, but I mean, that should have been their priority in the offseason, not going out and giving 4 years, and $20 million to Linus Ullmark, who I'm sorry has been hurt more than he's played in his NHL career so far. Yes, he's been behind a crummy team like the Buffalo Sabres, and I do think his stats increase and get better here, but I don't think he's a number 1 goalie. I just don't. He has to prove that. You don't go out and dedicate that type of money to a guy that has never proven that he can handle being on a legit contender as a number 1 guy. Furthermore, why would you do it when you claim that your hotshot future generation goalie is here now and he's the man going forward? Jeremy Swayman, who I agree with you, he's been great. This kid's maybe had 1 bad period since he's come up. He's been unreal. And of course, he's not going to stay on that stretch, but he's been by far the dominant goalie between the two in the preseason. And sadly, I still don't think he'll get the starting nod in the season opener because, as we know, things tend to go based on salary. And that's why, looping it back to the center position there, I think it's a great point you bring up there. Charlie Coyle prospered when he came to Boston because he was slotted in where he should be. In Minnesota, they were trying to make him a number 1. They were trying to make him a number 2 center. In Boston, he could come in, fall behind Bergeron and Krejci, and be that number 3 guy. And if I'm Don Sweeney, to allow that, I would have made sure that I went out and got a bona fide center to slide into where Krejci was. You keep Coyle at the 3rd center there. And I don't know how, this is a shame that we're not going to see Jack Studnicka in the lineup starting on opening night, because besides Swayman, he's been their other best player out there. And you guys brought up, now switch to the defense here. I'm with you. It was a little weird. Like, I hear a lot of scouts rave about the Forbett signing, but then I'm kind of like, I don't know if it was you, Alex, or Ian, who said, well, if he was so great, why did a team in such dire need of defense get rid of him?
The Jets, exactly. Yep, that's exactly what I said.
So
yep.
That raises a red flag, but then I kind of look at their cap situation. I look at some of the guys they were trying to move in from below, move some young guys up, and I kind of get it. So he's a wait and see there, but I do think if he's everything the scouts are telling me, I think he's a perfect complement to Charlie McAvoy there, because Charlie McAvoy, when he was paired with Mark Grzelcyk, it was just too much Paul Coffey type defense going straight ahead. You know what I mean? I mean, there was no defense involved really, and they were getting caught going back the other way red-handed, and a lot of times there are odd man rushes going the other way. So I think that they definitely want, whether it's Forbett or somebody else, they want a stay-at-home guy there that's going to be able to make that outlet pass and then let McAvoy do the rest, who, let's face it, I think McAvoy's a Norris Trophy candidate going into this year. As far as the team as a whole, guys, I'm with you. Completely agree. I think they're one of the biggest question marks in the NHL as we enter this season. You said it perfectly, and they could be really good or they could be really bad. I can't tell you which one right now. So I would advise to wait and see, maybe see if they start Ullmark. You might want to take the over. I'm telling you guys, he's been a nightmare in the preseason. I know it's a preseason, but I'm not confident about this guy. His 5-hole is atrocious. So that's something to watch there with the overs and the Boston Bruins there, especially for a team welcoming in new players and trying to mesh together. They could be a little lax defensively by accident. So that's my take on them. I wouldn't go near them yet. Just really see where they go. I wouldn't take them in any futures either.
Yeah, I think unders with Swayman, overs with Ullmark potentially. That makes sense because you're right. I've not seen anything in Swayman that tells me he's not very good.
And one thing I think you brought up DeBrusk, he's been on a mission. You can see it when he's talking. You can see it on the ice. He's got that snarl back that really helped him a lot in his first 2 years. I wouldn't mind looking at some over-unders on his goal totals and going over. You're probably going to get great odds considering how he was last year. So I'd say dabble a little in that because he could be one of those really big bounce back players, which in turn might help the Bruins eventually get that center they need because they might move him if he has some trade value because he's got none right now.
No, that's a good point. So something to keep an eye on definitely throughout the course of the year. Florida Panthers. This is of all the teams that I think that I'm highest on in the Atlantic Division. It's this team. I think this is a team that's ready to be very good this year. I already liked the steps last year that they took. I know they lost to Tampa in the first round. It was disappointing end for them, but I thought they competed well, and they're going to be probably as good, if not better, this year. When I look at this Florida team, bringing in Sam Reinhart was good for the Buffalo Sabres, but nobody pays attention because Buffalo sucks, but he's been very good for them the last few years. And getting him on this Florida team, he'll play with Barkov and Carter Verhaeghe. That's going to be a great top line. Huberdeau, Sam Bennett was, again, a guy that basically gets a new life going from Calgary where it didn't go well for him to Florida, and he thrived. Owen Tippett really showed me a lot last year. You've got obviously Frank Vetrano, Anthony Duclair, a good on the third line. Anthony Duclair is a guy that's capable of giving you some offensive punch. Joe Thornton, he's at the tail end of his career, but you need one big, older veteran presence, and I don't mind it. I don't think Joe's going to give you a ton anymore at this stage of his career, but I don't mind that deal for a team that's pretty young for the most part coming into the year. On the blue line, Ekblad, having him back from injury is massive, obviously. They missed him incredibly when he got injured. Great at both ends of the ice and terrific offensive defenseman, but also sturdy in his own end. And he plays that pairing with him and Mackenzie Weegar for Florida. That's a great pairing because Weegar, as we go along, he's becoming more and more of a very good, sturdy, shutdown, stay-at-home defenseman. He's getting much better in that regard. That's a nice top pair if they stay healthy, Ekblad and Weegar. The rest of the defense, Brandon Montour, Forsling, Nudavara, getting him from Columbus was good. I criticized Gudas for the lack of foot speed at times. And yes, sometimes that's an issue for him. But, oftentimes he's also in very good body position, uses that length, uses the stick, and knows the right position to be so he doesn't get beaten from a speed perspective. So that's good. They're fine in goal, with Spencer Knight and Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, Bobrovsky's not going to play as much this year, which is good, I think, for the Florida Panthers, because that's how much they like Spencer Knight. Nothing that I have seen from Spencer Knight indicates to me that he isn't ready to be a bona fide elite NHL goaltender. I think that ceiling is very real for him. Lot to like, and now they should be even more comfortable now in Quenneville, with Quenneville even more going into this year. Very, very high on Florida. I didn't bet a ton of point totals this year, but I did bet Florida's point total over the number. And I also have them to win the Atlantic Division, a little bit of a under the radar. I know Tampa's could win it. Toronto could win it. And definitely you've got to factor in those two teams. But I think Florida's got that chance maybe to surprise and win this division. So definitely bet on Florida for me with Florida all the way coming into this season. Alex, your thoughts on the Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that, someone had a great 2020, but if there was a group, it would definitely be the Florida Panthers. You look at, like you said, having the benefit of being in that redesigned Central Division really helped them. They were able to feast on a bad Chicago team. They were able to, beat up on Columbus, beat up on Detroit, and build some confidence moving now where they have a winning culture there. For the first and probably only time ever in history, they led the NHL in attendance. So that's something that's big. But now fans might actually start showing up because this is a team worth watching for all 82 games, or at least the 41 at home. And like I said, with how things are going with Tampa Bay, we'll talk about them in a minute, and Toronto as well. Everything, if you look at how everything's lined out, you have 4 teams that have point totals of 100 or higher in this Atlantic Division. So the books are telling you they believe that they're going to beat each other up, and it's going to be a 4-way race to the top. I mean, yeah, why not take a shot with the over and the division odds with Florida? I think they have the best chance of those 4 teams that are, within that, 6-1 range or under. So I like where everything's headed. If we can see Bobrovsky bounce back and have a good season along with Spencer Knight, who looks fantastic in the 4 games he played, this is a team that's in a good shape to, they said, not only win this division, but they'll make some noise and possibly make a deep run in the postseason.
Yeah, and keep in mind, they've got some serious prospects in the pipeline that probably won't even crack the opening night roster. I'm thinking of Anton Lundell as well, 20-year-old center who's already impressed in training camp, but because this is a roster that's pretty much set in stone for the most part, he might have to start the year in the minors, but they got a guy like that waiting in the wings with this Florida team as well. Jimmy, your thoughts on the Panthers?
Yeah, guys, I'm with you. I love the Panthers, and how can you not? I mean, this is a team that, look, did they lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round? Yeah, but that was a hell of a series. I thought that was one of the best series we saw throughout the playoffs. It was really fun, and it's great to see that seemingly become the rivalry the NHL's always wanted there in Florida. It looks like they're finally going to have a good rivalry there and build some hate, and those will be fun games to watch this year. We already saw a real crazy one in the preseason. So I like them a lot. I think that Florida actually – you guys nailed it. I mean, those 4 teams there, it's tough. Any of them could get first place. I really think, people are going to go around and I don't know why knock the Atlantic Division, but I think this is the best division in hockey, guys. I really do. I mean, look how hard it is to break this down and really pick a legit winner. But I think Florida could rise from the top there. It depends on the goaltending they get. I hope that it becomes Spencer Knight's net there. I really do we know he's the future, and I really love watching him out there. But it's tough, like we said, with the salary of Bob there, similar to what the Bruins are dealing with. Are they going to let him start over that? So maybe we see a 50-50 split. We'll see. I like their defense. If Ekblad can stay healthy, their defense is promising too. And look, this is going to be a team that can score. So, yeah, look at the overs there. Look for quick strikes. And you brought up Reinhart there. I mean, that could go down as one of the biggest steals in recent memory, I think, in terms of NHL trades. So I'm high in the Florida Panthers for sure.
All right, good stuff there. All right, we're down now to, I believe, the last 2 remaining teams now in the Atlantic Division. We'll do them both at the same time because Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs. There's definitely these are 2 teams that have high expectations, to say the least, coming into this season. It shouldn't be that surprising. Tampa Bay, obviously, winning 2 cups in a row is very difficult. They were able to do that. Now they got to try to win a third. And now they don't have the old let's skirt the salary cap rules going in their favor this year, unlike last year. And now they've actually had to lose some pretty key pieces to this team going into this year when you look at it, with what the Tampa Bay Lightning lost from last year. Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow. I talked about how good that third line was for them. There were times that third line was as good, if not better, than any other line for Tampa Bay in the playoffs. Now, because they had those nights where the top line, was the starring role, played the starring role, were the best line. They had nights where the second line was the best line. But there were nights, too, in the playoffs, guys, where the Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow third line with Yanni Gourde was their best line. And now 2/3 of that line have departed from this group team and have gone elsewhere. So you worry about that just a little bit, losing Coleman, losing that whole line, Coleman, Gourde, and Goodrow from last year's team. That's significant. Is that depth, going to be there for the Tampa Bay Lightning coming into this year? That's the big question mark. All of a sudden, you look at their forward group, guys, Palat, Point, Kucherov, love it. How can you not? That's an amazing top line, no doubt. Mm-hmm. Second line, Kaloran, Stamkos, and it looks like they're going to have the guy that they have signed, the youngster there, the Quebec native, Bar Boulet, potentially on that second line. That's still a pretty good line there. But then you get to the third and the fourth line, there's more questions. Anthony Cirelli didn't have a great year last year. He declined a little bit. Matthew Joseph, he's going to have to give you something. Ross Colton is still, development stage. And then in the fourth line, you've got, hardworking guys. Corey Perry, of course, they bring him in from Montreal, kind of a slap in the face to Montreal. Of all teams you're going to go with in the offseason, sign with, you're going to go to the team that beat you in the Stanley Cup final last year. A little bit interesting that's where he ended up, Corey Perry, but he's going to play with Belmar and Patrick Maroon on the fourth line. I mean, to me, there is not that same depth along the bottom 6 forwards for Tampa Bay that there was last year. On the blue line, obviously Victor Hedman. It's still a very good blue line. Chernak, McDonough, Hedman, Ruda, Sergachev. Like, they didn't really suffer any sort of losses on the blue line. And Zach Bogosian, a guy that fit in very nicely with John Cooper's Tampa Bay team 2 years ago, when they won the Stanley Cup the first time. He's back with the Lightning this year and already causing some havoc. He got into a fight the other night with Marchman. By the way, how good is Tampa Bay, Florida going to be this year? I mean, these two teams, it was a very rough series last year in the playoffs. It's already they're, going at it in the preseason, multiple scrums, multiple fights during the game. I mean, that rivalry is going to be off the chart this year, Lightning and Panthers. But to me, with this Tampa Bay team winning the 2 cups, I don't think there's a great rush we're going to pedal to the metal in the regular season, win the division. So be careful with Tampa Bay a little bit. That being said, when we get to Tuesday, and obviously we'll talk Penguins Lightning Tuesday, it probably is a good spot for Tampa Bay Tuesday because Pittsburgh's just going to be decimated with absences potentially in that Tuesday night game when you think Crosby and Malkin and Gensel got COVID-19 now. So you could be talking about a very short-handed Pittsburgh team. But just long term, Tampa Bay may not be that team you're going to be wanting to back night in and night out, especially because you're still going to have to pay a premium as well. I've got questions about the bottom 6 depth. The blue line's still good. You've still got arguably the best goalie in the world right now in Andrei Vasilevsky. But there's questions about that depth forward spot. You're not going to get that same third, fourth line punch, I think, that you got last year for the Lightning. Alex, your thoughts on Tampa Bay?
Yeah, the key number is 164. That's the number of games Tampa Bay has played since October 3rd, 2019 to right now. And they played that in a very, very condensed schedule. You talk about 70 games in the regular season, but before the stoppage for the pandemic, and then 23 games in the postseason. And they come back with 56 right away, and then another 25. That's a lot of hockey for a core that has played a lot of hockey even before that. We're talking about a team that's always in the playoffs and always deep in the playoffs. We saw the mountain of injuries they had guys play with. You had, Alex Killorn basically elect to put a rod in his leg so he could play through a broken leg if needed in the Cup final. Like I said, now that they're losing some of those depth players, some of those older guys, like I said, having another year under their belt, it just seems like the Cup hangover could really hit them pretty hard early right now. Like I said, Vasilevsky, all the mountain of minutes he's played, they do have, thankfully, a better backup option, I think, right now than Brian Elliott if they need to go to him early and throughout the year to try to rest Vasilevsky. Keep in mind, Vasilevsky more than likely will also be on the Russian team for the Olympics, too. So those are things we have to kind of factor into our handicap as well. Those top players around the league, they're going to have to play some extra games now going over to Beijing in February. So you got to read and react with that in the second half of the season. So that being said, I would only look at playing the point total under with Tampa Bay. I think obviously they're going to be a playoff team, but like I said, they can get lost in that shuffle between them and Toronto and Florida. It could be just a matter of points that separates first from third in this division when it's all said and done. I could see them being possibly second or third rather than first.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about long-term winning the Cup again, not so much winning the division, and having an amazing regular season, especially knowing a few years ago what that did. They had the incredible regular season. They get bounced by Columbus in the first round. So I think it's pacing yourself if you're Tampa Bay. Jimmy, what do you think of this Lightning team?
I'm just going to echo pretty much everything Alex just said. And it goes back to what we were saying to lead off the show is just keep an eye on teams like Tampa Bay who have played this much hockey in a short period of time. They're human. Their bodies are going to wear down. So maybe, November, December could be some really tough months. I think they're going to come out of this month. They're going to see where they're at. And they might have some guys that are starting to have hamstring issues or nagging injuries coming back that really just keep bothering them to a point that they're not going to be able to play. So they could get hammered by injuries early on here. But as you guys both say, they're a team that can recover from that. If given enough runway to do it, as long as they're not way out of it, they're always going to be in it. But this, I would bet against Tampa Bay a bit more than I'm used to in the early going here, because we tend to see Vegas is going to base a lot of things on last year and what they've done in the last 2 years as well, just being the defending 2-time Cup champs. You're going to get some great value in taking the opponent there. So definitely watch that and look for those steals to get.
All right. And last but not least, Toronto Maple Leafs in the Atlantic Division. And then we'll get to the Metro. The big additions, actually, to be honest with you, it's preseason. Don't overreact. But look, they made some changes. It was another gut-wrenching first-round exit last year against Montreal. Of course, I had some epic rants about that Leaf team, and they're just that epic. It was an epic fail. Let's be honest. 3-1 up in that series, and you can't find a way to win that series and close it out, and they end up losing in 7. And now they've just made some tweaks. A couple of the guys they brought in last year, Thornton, Bogosian departed, and they brought in, and I'll be honest, a lot of the guys that they brought in the off season, especially at forward, they've played well in the preseason. Nick Ritchie's been outstanding in the preseason for the Toronto Maple Leafs, getting him from the Boston Bruins. Michael Bunting, getting him from Arizona. He's been awesome in the preseason. Now, again, preseason, but you're happy with the early returns at least. Andre Kosh has even been solid. I've seen him, make some plays in the preseason. This guy's just been riddled with injuries, and there's still a question, can he play a full season? Obviously we know this team shouldn't have issues scoring goals. David Kamp's been good as well, by the way, and they're really liking his defensive play as well at the center spot. So keep an eye on that for the Leafs. But they like every guy they brought in the offseason. They're happy with what they've seen so far in the preseason. Now, can that translate to when the games count in the regular season? That's the question. The blue line, very, very similar to last year. Riley, Brody, Muzzin, Hall, Dermott, Sandin is probably going to be the sixth defenseman. I like what they've got in goal now. Look, he had to part ways with Freddie. Freddie couldn't stay healthy last year. And when he was in there, it was his worst season probably in years. He's getting older, not younger. He had to part ways. They weren't going to pay him that contract, especially when they're a salary cap strapped team like they are. And I like their tandem. Jack Campbell showed you a lot last year. The teammates love him. They play hard for him because they love him as a teammate that much. And the fact is, they're not going to have to rely on Campbell for 82 games. They're going to give, I think, equal distribution to Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek, who is a great, great pickup to be the 1A, 1B type goaltender here for this Leafs team. So I like the way it sets up for them in goal. They're a very good hockey team. They're going to have a very good regular season, but what are they going to do in the playoffs is the question mark. But that's a question for another day. We're talking about regular season right now. They'll have a fine regular season, and they'll contend to win this division. Simple as that. Alex, what do you think here, Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. They've got a decent goaltending tandem now. I think that could probably be a bit more stable than what we've seen. Like I said, Freddie Anderson was a bit up and down his last couple of years, but Jack Campbell seems to be the real deal. And like I said, if he does falter a bit, Peter Mrazek's there to kind of pick him up. We know how loaded this team is offensively. Maybe they can find a way to kind of batten down the hatches a little bit on the blue line. But like I said, as far as the regular season goes, you're not going to have much value betting on them night to night because they're, like I said, they're one of those favorite teams. They're a public team. So you'll have to try to attack with overs, find some derivative ways to bet them on a nightly basis. But they're going to be standard run-of-the-mill, have a great regular season, and just try to see if they can figure out, how to right the wrongs they've had over and over within the postseason.
Yeah, the only guy that departed from last year's Leafs team that they're really, really, really going to miss is obviously Zach Hyman, who, of course, is now with the Edmonton Oilers. They'll miss him significantly, no question about that. But they're already having visions of Nick Ritchie being the new Zach Hyman, if you will, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, with Matthews and Marner. So, and look, he's looked good so far, Ritchie. So he's not going to completely do what Hyman did. They like what they see from
before, boys. I've read this script for the last few years here in Boston. It doesn't end well, and I don't care if Wayne Gretzky's his center. Nick Ritchie is a bust, period. He's a third or fourth line player, and he will be on that third or fourth line within a month.
So this is all window dressing what he's doing in the preseason.
He is a tree trunk out there. He's a pylon. How is his speed going to keep up with Marner or Matthews or any of those guys flying?
Hyman's a faster skater. It's not close. Yeah.
Come on. It's not going to happen, guys. They're going to be getting down the ice and be waiting. Nick, come on. We got to shoot. We got to get a chance here. Come on. You can do it. What a disaster this is going to be. It is hilarious how the Toronto media just takes off with anything, The one thing I will say, though, I'm with you, Ian, is that Bunting kid I like a lot, and I've liked him. I've kept an eye on him before, and he could be the real deal there. I don't know if I'm as high on Campbell maybe as you guys are. I just, when
it's
the going
such
up,
a small sample size. I get it. Great run, but small sample size.
Team was crumbling in front of him. He crumbled the most, and it's just to me he's a great backup. I just can't see him being a guy that puts them over the top. And this is why, guys, I won't be the least surprised. I'm not hearing anything right now, but I could see Dubas really, depending on how they come out of the gate here, he might go out and just acquire a goalie somewhere. There's some goalies to be had right now in the trade market if you want them. I think Gibson could be had in Anaheim. I think that he might get moved this year, depending on how Anaheim does. But they need a goalie, and that's the biggest thing to me. If they get a goalie, this team wins the cup in my eyes. They really do. The greatest thing to watch, though, for them, though, and we talked about how they crumbled, now we're going to see what they're made of. I think that they've had enough gut-wrenching losses and gut checks and, character-building type moments on the wrong end of the score. It's now or never. Like Dubas has said, it truly is now or never. And, they owe it to him, man, because if I was that GM, I would have blown this roster up a long time ago. I'm with Alex. Just stay away from the sides for now and bet those overs with them because there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating year. And again, they're going to be needled and asked and quizzed and questioned about the playoffs, throughout the course of the regular season. But I hope they park those questions, the Toronto media. Let them get through the day-to-day grind of the regular season. Then if you want to pepper them about the playoffs and the lack of success in the playoffs, wait till April. Yeah. Wait till April. Like I hope they're not asking Matthews and Marner and all these guys in November. Well, you're having a great run, but what do you think if you can make this happen in the playoff? No, just shut up and just let them get through the damn season. Let them get to April. Let them get in the playoffs. You still got to work to get in there, to be honest with you. They should, obviously, but you never know. You never take anything for granted. Injuries, other teams surprise. You have problems finishing like you did against Montreal in the first round last year, and all of a sudden you're in a fight just to get in. So, never take anything for granted. That's for sure. But on paper, it's a very good team. They'll have a good regular season. They'll be a playoff team. They could even contend for the division. But again, it's going to be all about what they do in April and beyond. That's how they're going to be judged, right or wrong. That's the way it is with this Toronto team. All right, we're going to get to the Metro Division in just a sec. But before we do, a message from DraftKings. Hockey is back. And the DraftKings Sportsbook are great partners here with THPN. They've got an unbelievable offer to celebrate the greatest sport on ice. Customers can bet just $1 on any hockey team and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. It doesn't matter if it's a one-time clapper or a deft deflection. However they light the lamp, you win. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. You can still play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code THPN. You know it. You love it. It hasn't changed from last year when we did this show. Throw down $1 on any hockey game. Win 100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. This week, one puck in the net nets you a big win. So make sure you take advantage of that. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the promo code THPN. All right, it is time for the Metropolitan Division now. And a look at that division. We'll start with the worst team, which to me is Columbus. I mean, it's just a tough ask for Brad Larson. Poor guy, and I'm going to say the same thing tomorrow on the Western Conference show about Andre Tourigny with Arizona. I like the hires, but the problem is they're in brutal situations, both guys. It's the start of a rebuild for both of these organizations. And are these guys going to be around long enough to see the eventual light at the end of the tunnel? At the end of these rebuilds. But clearly that's where Columbus is going right now, beginning a rebuild. You look at the roster, they bring in Jacob Voracek and part ways with Cam Atkinson in that deal with the Flyers. I don't know if that's necessarily a good news. I mean, I like Atkinson, kind of had an up and down year, but he's the younger player. He's got ability to finish. Voracek now to Columbus, a guy that was kind of disgruntled in Philly. If he thought he was disgruntled in Philadelphia at times last year, you're now going to be with a team that's going to have a probably rough season, rebuilding team. How's it going to go with him in Columbus? Patrick Laine, not good enough since he joined the Jackets, didn't do a whole lot. They got to pray he shows up nightly offensively for this Columbus team because it's patchwork. Gus Nyquist at the downside of his career. I like Bjorkstrand, but Roslovic, streaky. And then you're not going to get much from the third and the fourth line offensively. I mean, you're talking still Max Domi. You're talking Nathan Gerby. They do bring in Corrali, of course, from the Boston Bruins in the offseason. The blue line is shaky to me after you get past Werenski. And Jake Bean was actually not a bad pickup for the Carolina for the Columbus Blue Jackets from Carolina. But once you get beyond those two guys, Gavrikov, Boquist, Harrington, and Harrington's been like in the AHL for the most part of his career the last few years. And now they're going to ask him to play a top six role on this blue line for Columbus. And, when you look at the goaltending for the Columbus Blue Jackets, obviously they had the tragic passing, of course, of their one of their goaltenders in the organization, Give Lennox, and that was a sad situation for this entire team. I don't think it's going to affect these guys mentally. They'll be able to play. Merzlikins has shown capabilities at times, but him and Korpisalo now back to back. One night they're good, one night they're not. But when you look at them where they are, and then you look at the rest of the division, there's a reason why it looks like they're going to be the bottom feeders here in the Metro Division. So that's pretty much where we stand with Columbus. Alex, anything you want to say about Columbus?
Yeah, no, this is a team I have circled as one of those teams that probably be worth looking at for overs, especially in the first period, but definitely full game. Like I said, the blue line seems like it's going to wear down a bit. And eventually, like I said, Merzlikins can't stop everything. So if you think he's always facing 40, 50 shots a night, they're going to be, struggling mightily. And they have offensive talent, of course, with Laine, Roslovic, and so forth. But can they gel together and play like a team, consistently throughout? That remains to be seen. So they're going to definitely struggle in this tough Metropolitan Division. But the only way we can really be able to attack them will more than likely be, with some overs.
Yeah, and that's going to be the issue with Columbus. It's not only that they're rebuilding, but they're in a division where everybody else seems to be on paper better than them, and that's going to be the issue. Jimmy, what do you think of Columbus?
Yeah, same thing here, guys. I mean, and don't let Zach Rowinski hear all this, huh? He gets mad if you call it a rebuild, but I mean, that's what it is. Let's face it. I mean, what else you got? And why he would sign that deal and somehow try, fall for whatever they told him? They're a long way off right now, I think, guys. And look, Patrick Laine, is he an X factor? Sure. If he comes out and can be the Patrick Laine he was in his rookie season and find that again and stay healthy, then maybe we're talking about these guys pushing for a spot potentially. But as of now, I don't see much coming from this team right now. One thing would be interesting is the goaltending. You brought it up there. I think those goalies do have potential, but you mentioned it. It's just the consistency with them. They can't seem to stay consistent. And then, of course, there's been injuries with them as well. So this is a team I just really don't have much interest in betting-wise as we start the season.
New Jersey Devils next up. Obviously, this is a team that's trying to get on that playoff path. Are they ready to be a playoff team is the big question. It could go either way again. It's kind of like Boston here. If they push for a playoff spot, it wouldn't surprise me. But, if they find themselves on the outside looking in again, that wouldn't surprise me. What I do like for the Devils is Jack Hughes stepped up at a much better year last year and now certainly looks more and more like a guy that, we're ready to see him take off in that number one center spot, number one overall pick when we drafted him. And he certainly showed signs of that. But boy, I still question where the team is going to get consistent offense from, some of their bottom six group guys. Tatar is now going to be asked to play on the second line. And that guy had a great run in Montreal for a bit. And then he couldn't find the back of the net for a very long time, at a massive slump, couldn't even crack the playoff roster for Montreal once the playoffs came around. So what are you going to get from him? Heeshier's already had a ton of injuries, very talented, very skilled, good offensive player, but injuries have been an issue for him. You look at the blue line, you've got Ryan Graves. A nice ad. I'll admit that. Very nice addition from Colorado. Dougie Hamilton, I like him. Jimmy, maybe not so much, and I'm sure he'll get to that in just a second. But Ty Smith, Damon Severson, Siegenthaler's a nice pickup from Washington. Subban, can he stay healthy I actually don't mind their blue line. The blue line's not bad. What are you going to get from Blackwood? Blackwood's been very good at times. He's been not so good at others, and he's also been in and out with injuries. We still have not seen enough from Blackwood to say, wow, this is for sure our number one goalie, our bona fide franchise goalie moving forward. So there's a lot of questions for New Jersey. I feel the same way with New Jersey as Boston, where its jury is out for me. I got to see if Blackwood plays well. Let's see how the blue line improves. I think it will. And where are they going to get scoring outside of Hughes and Heeshier? And maybe a couple guys on the top six forward group. I mean, there's some guys that can put the puck in the net, but the depth forwards don't scare me on this team. So really a wait and see approach for me with the Devils. Alex, what do you think of Jersey?
Yeah, this is kind of just a mid-range team, in my opinion. Like I said, Mackenzie Blackwood is somebody I thought was going to finally at some point emerge as a top 10 goaltender. I think I might have missed the mark with him a little bit. I think he just seems to just kind of be, a run of the mill guy. He can get on a hot streak. Yeah. Well, yeah. He can get on a hot streak and then go cold, at any given moment. And then you look at, like I said, this offense, they have some talent that, can build over time, but they just don't seem like a team that's going to be able to keep pace with the speed. If you look at this division and even just the whole conference as a whole, they can't keep up in any kind of series with a Tampa Bay, Toronto, even a team like the New York Rangers would be able to outgun them. So they're just going to, probably find themselves, maybe keeping afloat in the middle of the season, but at some point they're going to fall toward the bottom.
All right, Jimmy, New Jersey, what do you think?
Well, yeah, no, I did not like the Dougie Hamilton signing. And I can tell you, fact is that signing was not the final choice made by Tom Fitzgerald. That was all ownership, and ownership is just way heavy in on the analytics in New Jersey right now. And no, I'm not some old timer, old fart who doesn't like analytics, but I think that it's been overused in both hockey and baseball. If you saw my tweet last night where all stat geeks came after me afterwards, but look, this is crazy. I mean, you don't put everything into analytics. And I think Tommy Fitz was making a great team there. He was building a lot. They have a lot of great young prospects coming along right now. I was convinced they could take another step forward if they got more of a well-rounded defenseman, not a guy that's an absolute nightmare in his own end. All right. Dougie Hamilton, to me, is not what this team needed. I think they had enough offense and guys coming through the system. They should have just let them go in there and brought in more of a veteran stabilizing force on that blue line. Now you factor in the whole Mackenzie Blackwood mess. It's just whatever. I'm not even going to go on a rant. I've done enough ranting about anti-vaxxers, but it's really screwing up this team. And I don't know if you guys heard Tommy Fitzgerald on the Jeff Marek show earlier this week. I mean, he called them out. He said, yeah, he's like, yeah, I've told them you are screwing up our season. We were ready to take it to the next level, and you're holding that up right now, and you're holding us all hostage. And that's not something a developing team needs, kind of like in Ottawa, the Kachuk situation. You don't need those distractions. I don't care how many times people say, or players say, oh, it's not a distraction. We're fine. They'll figure it out. We're not worried. Yeah, bullshit. They're all worried about it. And they're all worried about Blackwood there. And that is a big elephant in the room as this season starts there. I'm telling you, if this hadn't happened, I would have looked at them as one of those long shots to make the playoffs. A long, long shot. But I thought they were definitely going to take a step forward. Now, I don't know. They seem like they're in neutral. I would bet the over a lot with this team going forward.
Yeah, definitely good points there. Philadelphia Flyers. This is my team I'm not all that high on coming into this year. Philadelphia. I mean, obviously last year was disappointing. You're hearing some things now. It was Robin Leonard that said what he said about Vigneault, right? You're hearing these things about Alain Vigneault now coming out about, how he's been with players in the past as a coach. That's not good. That's something you don't want to be dealing with when you're starting a new year for sure. And by the way, I should point out, people in the chat talking about Sharon Govich for the Devils. Yes, he is a guy that actually I think will have a nice year for them. He better, because they don't have a lot of options scoring, in the depth forward group, the third line and the fourth line. He's going to have a big year. He is someone I will probably look at for points, goal scorer props, shots on goal. Those kind of player props this year with Sharon Govich, I think probably worth a look. But Flyers have issues. This is the same old retread team. I mean, Giroux, Couturier, Konechny, Farabee. They bring in Brassard, who's kind of declined recent years. Cam Atkinson, bringing him in from Columbus, streaky. And then you've got Lawton, you got James Van Riemsdyk, Lindblom, and Obey-Kubel. It's just the same kind of group we saw last year that didn't have a very good year. The blue line, Provorov is definitely someone I like. They bring in Ryan Ellis from Nashville, and he's been good in Nashville, Ryan Ellis, but he's an older guy now. He's had some injuries. He's had some setbacks. Are you going to get Ryan Ellis at the peak of his career at this stage? I don't know about that if you're Philadelphia. Sanheim, Yandel, who, now brought him in the offseason. Ristolainen, that doesn't impress me. Ristolainen to me is more taking bad penalties, selfish penalties to me, Ristolainen, than being a good defenseman. It's almost like that's more of his focus in a lot of games. I don't love that addition to this blue line here for the Flyers. And then in net, you better hope to God Carter Hart figures it out and bounces back this year, because it was not good last year for him. I have no idea if he's going to bounce back, because it was such a bad year for him. But we know he was very good a couple of years before that when they went to the playoffs in the bubble. and he was very good. And what are you going to get, though, this time around from Carter Hart? I don't know. It's a wait and see for me. All I know is that you better get good goaltending from Carter Hart, because you ain't going to get it from his backup, and that's Martin Jones, who, of course, is now the backup here for the Philadelphia Flyers. Just amazing. Just what they needed. Martin Jones to be their backup with a guy where we don't know where his head is at, as our number one goalie that we're thinking is our franchise goalie, or at least a couple of years. We thought that a couple of years ago. We thought that. Now we're not so sure. So it's thumbs down for me on Philadelphia. It is. It's a bet against team for me until further notice. I mean, I'm going to have to see it. This looks like the same old retread team up front, same old suspect blue line, and question marks in net that I saw last year from a team that failed miserably, disappointed, and underachieved terribly, and missed the playoffs. And I'm going to need to see an improvement before I believe it. Alex, what do you think of Philly?
As a Chicago Bears fan who's seen about 837 quarterbacks in 25 years, I feel bad for the Philadelphia Flyers fans, because they've gone through the same plight as far as goaltending concerned. And like I said, they didn't add much when you're talking about Martin Jones, a guy who's well past his prime and didn't look good in the couple of games I saw from him during the preseason. Like I said, Carter Hart's got to really figure things out sooner rather than later. Otherwise, this team's going to be in trouble right off the jump. This is a team that screams to me overs, first period overs, full game overs. They're going to be giving up goals in bunches. They're going to be scoring goals in bunches, which is something we don't really get to see a lot from the Eastern Conference. Usually you talk about the Flyers, you talk about mostly tight games, 3-2, 2-1. That's not going to be the case early here, especially if Hart doesn't have things rolling. They have to turn to Martin Jones. It'll get pretty ugly. So that's the only thing I'm looking at there. Don't see them doing much. Could be a playoff team if they figure things out, but they've got a lot to figure out.
Yeah, I might even look more, just not just the full game overs or that, but the team total over for the other team. Because the one thing for the Flyers last year was that offense was spotty. There'd be games where they could barely crack a goal or 2 goals, and I worry about their ability to put the puck in the net consistently this year too. So maybe not just overs, but if you for a little more insurance, if you really feel they're going to be giving up more of the goals, Philly, the team total over for the other team, probably a good look as well. Jimmy, what do you think about the Flyers?
Well, here's what I'll preface by saying, and you guys already mentioned, both of you there. I mean, Carter Hart is the big if for this team. That's it. If he is back to the Carter Hart we saw 2 years ago, then the Philadelphia Flyers, in my eyes, are a Stanley Cup contender. That's how high I am. If Carter Hart is Carter Hart, we know. Look, guys, this team went out and revamped their defense. I like Ristolainen. This is another case. You're talking about, well, let's give Ullmark a little credit because he was playing in Buffalo. The same goes with him, with Ristolainen or with Reinhart. This is a guy that's been trapped in a bad situation for years, wanting to get out. He was a hot commodity on the trade market. And now you look at it, they bring in Ryan Ellis as well. Not a lot of people are talking about that move, and I think that could turn out to be one of the biggest moves of the offseason was the Flyers bringing in Ryan Ellis. Just remember I said that. I think their defense has done a great job of improving in the offseason. I give Chuck Fletcher a lot of credit there. And up front, I think they've got some young guys that are ready to come in. I love bringing in Cam Atkinson and replacing Voracek there, because from what I'm told, guys, with people within the organization there, was that Voracek was a distraction in that locker room. He was not the leader that they tried to paint him out to be. There had become a lot of strife between him and some other players, and they needed to get him out of there. Now they bring in a kid in Cam Atkinson, who I think the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to miss a lot in terms of leadership and speed. I like that addition there, and I think if he makes it out of camp, and it looks like he will, I'm making some prop bets on Morgan Frost, guys. Remember, this is the guy they got in that Shen deal with St. Louis. The other guy nobody talks about there. He's a guy to watch. I think back to the defense, Provorov is up for it. I like this team a lot. So I'm going to go. If Carter Hart's looking good and I can still get some good value, I'm going over on the wins for the Philadelphia Flyers.
All right. A game changer, of course, though, is if Carter Hart is back on the
That
beam.
is, like I said, the biggest,
maybe
the biggest if in the NHL right now.
Yep. No, Ellis could still play at a very high level. Yandel, they had to do something to the blue line, and they've tried.
It'll help the power play.
Yeah, it'll help the power play. I would see that. And again, if they
guys
can score
see
more, they're going to have to, I think,
yeah.
especially if they're going to have goaltending concerns.
Yeah, and apparently he brings manners to the team too. I don't know if you guys saw the video of him. Apparently every time he comes back, when the goalie plays the puck to him, he thanks the goalie every single time.
I saw that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That was good. I saw that. That was great.
Well, I'll give one of those to them if they make me look good in a few months.
Yeah, you'll give them a couple of thank yous. Yeah,
Yep.
thank you. I'm the one that believed in the Flyers on the Ice Guys show. Thank you. You can get the thanks from the Flyers if you are indeed correct that they can bounce back, be a better team, maybe even make the playoffs. But again, it's going to come down. You could say that about a lot of teams to goaltending, but especially this Flyers team because Hart's got to play well. They can't rely on Jones. It's simple as that. All right, next up, as we continue along here, the New York Rangers. This is the team I like in this division in terms of taking that step. See, I don't think the Flyers will take that step. I don't think the Devils will. Columbus isn't going to be good. This is the team that takes that step this year and makes the playoffs in this division. I think it's the New York Rangers. Gerard Gallant's had a history of first year with the team, right away improvement, right away positive improvement from the team. Florida, Vegas, and I think it's going to happen here with the New York Rangers as well. Are there questions? Of course. Defensively, can Igor Shesterkin be their bona fide number one guy? I'll tell you what, I saw a lot more positives from Shesterkin in net last year than Hart. As long as he stays healthy, he's shown me enough. They're going to miss Pavel Buchnevich, and they're going to miss Blackwell even as a depth forward. And Buchnevich had great camaraderie playing up front on that top line with that Rangers team. But they bring in Barclay Goodrow for a little sandpaper, and he's a good defensive forward, and he can chip in offensively. Sammy Blais from the Blues, same thing, good two-way forward. Ryan Reeves for a little bit of grit. Unfortunately, he suffers a brutal injury in the preseason last night, and now we're all getting excited for Ryan Reeves versus Tom Wilson on TNT next Wednesday night, potentially Rangers Capitals. That's probably not going to happen now. Reeves is going to miss some time, but nevertheless, they wanted to toughen up. They were kind of embarrassed with the way they handled the Tom Wilson incident last year when they faced the Capitals. But more than anything, this team is still going to be just incredible offensively. There's no doubt. I mean, their ability to score goals, Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, Ryan Strome, Capo Caco really stepped up last year. Alexis Lafreniere, didn't have a great rookie year, but I'd expect him in year number 2 to be a lot more comfortable. I think they'll be able to score goals, this hockey team, again. Where I think they've improved a little bit and where they're going to continue to improve is the blue line. Because Adam Fox, bona fide could be in the Norris Trophy conversation this year. Ryan Lindgren showed me a lot. I like Keandre Miller as well for the Rangers. That guy's got a lot of upside along the blue line, skates well, good in his own end. Trouba's very good in his own end as well. Patrick Nemeth brought in as well by this Rangers team in the offseason. Good veteran, depth defenseman. So there's lots to like with that blue line in terms of them improving there. And you've got Shesterkin and Georgiev in net. And I'm a believer in Shesterkin. I think he's going to be a really good goaltender for this team. So I like the Rangers over their point total. I bet them to win the Metro as well. You can get that right now at around plus 350. Rangers to win the division. I took that. I've got them in futures to win the East and the Cup as well. And also what I like too, if you can find books that offer awards props, NHL awards props, best goaltender, best rookie, best defenseman, Jack Adams Award. I'm already on Shesterkin for the Vezina at a little bit of a dark horse price, 22-1. And I already think it's one of the best Jack Adams Award prop bets you can make. Gerard Gallant, 11-1, New York Rangers. Oh, yeah. He's absolutely got a chance to win the Jack Adams Award this year. If they make the playoffs and then they make noise in the playoffs, he's absolutely at or near the top of the list to win that Jack Adams Award this year. Gerard Gallant, 11-1, Jack Adams Award winner, Coach of the Year. I think it can be done. I've already bet that as well. Alex, what do you think here? New York Rangers.
Yeah, I'm high on the Rangers as well, and I'm definitely would tell you with that 11-1 on Gallant to win the Jack Adams. I like them to win the division as well, and I like their points over at 95.5. The division price, I really wish I would get a better return on. Plus 350 is a bit short, but with that being said, like I said, everything looks good for this team right now. They have a blue line that can finally work, and like I said, look at Adam Fox. He seems to be a guy who's going to be a potential generational talent on that blue line. They haven't had a D-man like him basically since Brian Leach. So if he can stay healthy and continue to play solid two-way hockey, that's something that's going to be a big plus for them. Obviously, the offensive talent they're loaded with. Artemi Panarin, this is actually a prop I bet, over 28.5 goals for him. I think he's going to have a tremendous season and possibly be right in that race for the Richard Trophy, maybe even for the Hart Trophy, if he can carry this team along and they end up winning the division. Shesterkin, I think he's going to be tremendous in net. I just like where everything's going with this team. Like I said, things were thrown off course with them, like in most teams over the last couple of years. But I think they finally have played enough hockey where they can really kind of ride together, and they're going to be at least closer toward the top, if not the very top of this Metro division.
All right. One of our great loyal viewers, Jarek, in our chat, suggesting Panarin to win the Hart, 12-1. I'm even seeing 16-1 in some spots as well with that. I'm not going to talk you out of that. I wouldn't talk anyone out of making a bet on a team that I think I'm high on coming into the year. Because obviously, if I think they're going to have a good season, an improved season, then I think their players are going to have a good season. I think the coach is going to do it. That's why I'd look at Panarin. I'd look at the Shesterkin for the Vezina. I'd look at Gallant for the Coach of the Year, Jack Adams, because I think they're going to have an improved year. No question. Jimmy, what do you think here, New York Rangers?
What I think here, guys, is that I agree with everything you said right now. And then look, I'm not going to jinx them this year. I believe I picked them to win the cup last year. I'm pretty sure I did. That didn't go so well. But no, I think they do make the leap now. Look, I didn't agree with the way everything went down there. I don't know how you fired Jeff Gorton. I get Chris Drury was knocking on a door. He plays a pivotal role in everything that happened up until then. But I just thought Gorton could have been kept in some other way. I thought it was handled poorly, but we're moving on. And I look at this team now on the ice. I like them a lot. I love the grit that they brought in with Goodrow and Reeves and Blaze. And I like this team right now. And I'm with you guys. I like Panarin a lot. I actually was thinking about that today, of putting some money down on him to win the Hart Trophy. I think that's a great bet. And I wasn't even thinking about, the goalie there. You never know, man. I mean, if the team does well and he's racking up the wins, yeah, he becomes a candidate there. I don't know if he's that far yet, but you never know. I think this is going to be a fun team to watch, and I'm going to tail you on that Gallant Coach of the Year as well.
I like that you can bet these now. These are becoming more and more available at a lot of books now. These NHL awards, preseason props that you can bet to win all of these awards, and Hart Trophy, Vezina, Jack Adams, go on down the list. It's great that you can bet those now. This is my. If I had a best bet of all the awards props, that's the one, Gerard Gallant. Seriously, to win. I couldn't believe 11-1. Like they've got
14-1 at another shop too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you shop around. You might even be able to, there's some 14-1s out there apparently, but the only ones that are ahead of him, Cooper, but Cooper's, already had a good team. He's not going to win it. I mean, that's the bad bet of the bunch. John Cooper plus 650. I mean, Tampa Bay's really good. They're loaded. And that's the favorite. And the Jack Adams usually goes to someone that takes a team that had a bad year, bad season, and improves them significantly the next season. And that's the perfect candidate for a Gerard Gallant. In my Trotz plus 850, no, because the Islanders have been good the last few years. Dean Evison, if they're good this year, but they were good last year too. So at 8-1, I don't love that. That's why Gallant there, 11-1, stands out in my opinion for the Coach of the Year type of awards going into this year. I'm trying to see what else maybe I'd look at. Tippett 20-1 if the Oilers are really good, potentially. Maurice 20-1 if the Jets have a really nice bounce back year, which I think they could. There's some ones down the board that I think might have some value. In my opinion, but definitely the number one for me is Gallant, no question.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, but and it's mentioned in the chat, Jeremy Colton, if he can finally figure it out with the lineup he's got a lot of the chances anybody to win that.
Yeah, and he's 40-1, in that range in a lot of spots. So Jeremy Colton, he's going to have his best team at his disposal, clearly, for Chicago, and we'll be talking about them tomorrow. All right, we've got a few teams left here. We move on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Guys, this is bet against at least to begin the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, this team is just going to be without key personnel at the beginning of the year. Crosby, Malkin out indefinitely. Jake Gensel's now on the COVID-19 list for the Penguins, and he, is definitely going to be missing at the very least opening night next week against Tampa, probably a lot more than that potentially. And now you're going to have to fit in all kinds of different pieces. Now you lose you lose two top line players, and you lose basically 3 top 6 forwards are going to be out for you to begin the year. That's trouble. You got to overcome that. You look at their bottom 6 forward group with Dominic Simone, Brian Boyle, Drew O'Connor, Danton Heinen, Teddy Bluger, Brock McGinn. You're not always going to be able to get offense consistently from them. Now you look at Jeff Carter, Brian Rust, Jason Zucker, who's had injury problems and didn't always produce consistently last year. Kapanen, the same thing. Streaky would go on these great runs and then would be quiet for several games in a row. I mean, where's the offense all of a sudden going to come from when you're starting the year without Crosby, Malkin, and Gensel? That's going to end up being the big question. The blue line, pretty much very similar to last year. Pedersen, Ruido, Marino, Matheson, Letang, Dumoulin, the six defensemen that the Penguins will be going with next year into this season. I actually like Casey DeSmith more than I like Jarry at this point. You know how pathetic I thought Tristan Jarry was in that series against the Islanders last year. I think they could have beaten the Islanders. With all due respect to the Islanders, good team, great, well coached. Pittsburgh could have won that series if they had a lick of goaltending, and they did not have any from Tristan Jarry in that series. So that's up for debate how good he can be in net. I actually think DeSmith might be the better option, but for me, it would be. I want no part of the Penguins early in the year, and I think they're going to be up against it Tuesday night against Tampa Bay and beyond. So Penguins, at least early in the season, we'll be looking to make some money going against them. Alex, what do you think, Pittsburgh?
This will be the third year in a row I've been saying it, that, the clock is ticking, and finally it seems like that window might be closed and possibly locked behind them as far as making a run to the Stanley Cup. Now this team's getting older. They're having the health issues as usual. At first, you saw, okay, Crosby's going to be out for a couple of weeks. No big deal. Crosby's always out for 2 weeks at some point during the season. It's going back the last 7 or 8 years. Now you got Malkin out for an extended period of time. Now you got Gensel out. It's just going to keep mounting and mounting. They didn't do anything to address the bad goaltending. They're still rolling with Jarry and DeSmith, which is one of the worst tandems in the league as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, things could go from bad to worse right away, especially if they can't find the depth scoring and offense that we've seen, time and time again, that's kept the Penguins afloat and kept them as a playoff contender. I have them miss the playoffs at plus 170. I didn't play them on the points total under because this is a division that's going to be really close. I think we're going to see, and it's something to keep a note of as far as this division as a whole in the Metro. Point totals, I would tend to lean over with most of these teams because this is going to be the grouping that I think is closer as opposed to the Atlantic. We're going to see a lot of overtime battles, which means a lot of 3-point games. That's going to help push those numbers over, where as opposed to some of the other divisions, I think we'll see teams maybe as a true split of over and under. So that's something to keep a note of. So if I had to play the point total, it would be over, but I'm not doing that because I think they're going to be a team that is toward the bottom of the division and they end up missing the postseason.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, Jared McCann will be missed as well for this Pittsburgh team. He played very well at times last year. And that's another guy that gave you some good offense last year. And that's, I think, putting the puck in the net, especially early with all the guys out. That's going to be a challenge for this Penguins team. Unders, Pittsburgh team total unders, maybe something you look at early in the year for this team. Jimmy, what do you think here about the Penguins?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. This team is not looking good. I think the way we've seen it, Alex said it, they've been trending downward, and shouldn't have been any surprise that they lost to a team that made it to the Eastern Conference Final the year before. I mean, I don't know why people keep sleeping on the Islanders. We'll see how we're all looking at them in a bit here, but the Pittsburgh Penguins are not heading in the right direction, and then you throw these monkey wrench injuries in the mix there. The goaltending is a huge question mark. Even if Tristan Jarry becomes a better goalie, he's still Tristan Jarry. He's still not that great a goalie, guys. Let's face it. This team should have addressed that, and they should have been addressing some problems up front as well. I do not think the Pittsburgh Penguins make the playoffs. I would go under on the wins here. Good point by Alex, though, on the points. Maybe you look at it a little different there because that's a great point. You might see a lot of extra time there, but just bet heavy against the Penguins to start the season here.
Yeah, I think early it's going to be a struggle for this team, no doubt. We have 3 teams left now before we wrap up the show. Washington Capitals next up here. Washington Capitals team that coming into this year, they're an interesting group to sort of think about. Of course, Peter Laviolette took over this team last year. I thought he did a pretty good job with them, all things considered. They had COVID issues at times. They had guys in and out of the lineup. They were a really injury-plagued hockey team last year. And yet they still fought their way into the playoffs, ended up losing, of course, in the very first round of the Boston Bruins. But nevertheless, I thought Washington, did a solid enough job last year. And, Alex Ovechkin, the question now is going to be, can he break Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record? It's certainly well within reach. And the great one's going to have a front row seat because, TNT is going to have a lot of Washington games on their schedule this year. So Wayne will get to see, while he's working on television now, get to see if he can fend off the great Alex Ovechkin for that goal scoring record. But no, I mean, this team is still going to be able to put the puck in the net. I mean, you have Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, you have Wilson, you have Mantha, who came over and played pretty well since joining them from Detroit. Daniel Sprong, that guy, he was really giving them some goals as well, some offensive contributions. Keep an eye on him. Value goal scorer prop. I took his goal scorer props a lot last year, Sprong. So keep an eye on him. Oshie, Connor Sheary, Hagelin's now in the fourth line. So they've still got some pretty damn impressive forward depth. Nick Backstrom's the only guy up front that looks like he's going to be missing on IR to begin the year. No timetable for his return right now. On the blue line, they'll miss Siegenthaler on the blue line going into the year. Brendan Dillon they'll miss. No question about that. Of course, they had Zdeno Chara for 1 year, and now he's gone as well. So a little bit of a shakeup on the blue line, but you've got Orlov, Jensen, Justin Schultz, Michael Kempney, John Carlson, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the blue line here for the Washington Capitals. And in net, it's going to be interesting because these are two guys that, what are we going to get? We've seen some brilliance from Ilya Samsonov. We've seen some marginal goaltending at times as well from Ilya Samsonov. And I could say the same thing about Vitek Vanacek, the backup goalie for the Capitals. So this team is going to be, in terms of their blue line and their goaltending, a little bit of a wait and see. Up front, they're still going to be able to find their way to scoring goals. 5-on-5, their power play is still going to be tough to stop. They'll be a very good team still. Playoff team, probably. Beyond that, we'll wait and see. Alex, what do you think, Washington Capitals?
The way that their postseason ended last year, I think, was kind of foreshadowing what's to come for this Washington team. I think, once again, just kind of like not in the same vein as Pittsburgh, but they're definitely going to be a team that, windows closing, and they're getting older. They're having injury issues. They seem to not have as much depth as they once did, years ago, where one or two more injuries and they could be in some serious trouble. They've got the offense, but if they have anything on the blue line or anything in net, which we've seen, over the last couple of seasons, especially like I said with the goaltending tandem, they could be in some serious trouble with how these other teams are progressing forward. So I actually played Washington's points total under, and I played them to miss the playoffs as well. I think they're going to be in that wild card mix, but they find themselves on the way out.
Yeah, someone might drop out. That's true. I'm not sure if it's Washington. I think they'll find a way to get in, but it's not a certainty. And look, they didn't really replace Brendan Dillon enough on the blue line. I mean, I think you're going to have to, when you look at the blue line on paper, it does look a little bit weaker on the back end, a little bit more thin on the blue line this year for the Washington Capitals compared to last year. Jimmy, what do you think here of this Washington team?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm not just like Pittsburgh. I think they're heading in the wrong direction, have been for a bit now. Dating back to the 2020 playoffs, I think we saw the first sign of that. What was it? The Islanders that knocked them out that year, and then we saw the Bruins knock them out in 5 last year. So look, I look at the Capitals as a team that's declining. I don't think they make the playoffs with the defense that they currently have. I think Samsonov is going to be a legit bona fide number one, a star in this league. This is a big year for him. He really struggled in that series against Boston. So let's see where his confidence is at. I think the saving grace, though, no pun intended, or very much so, could be Vanacek, the backup there. I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if he takes over that number one spot at some time. I think they're going to split for now, but I could see him emerging as the number one guy there. I was very impressed with his performance last night here in Boston, and also last year whenever he relieved Samsonov. So I like the future for that kid. So between the pipes are okay, but they're aging up front. Their defense is soft as can be. This could be a tough year for the Capitals.
They'll score, and you're right. Their defense and goaltending, they'll be an over team potentially. And keep an eye on Connor McMichael, first-round pick from 2019.
That's
Looks like he's going to make the team this year. And, they already have enough guys to score, and they bring him in now, Connor McMichael. So definitely keep an eye on that. They're going to be very potent up front. And look, they've been top 3, top 5 in goals in the league the last few years. That's not going to stop. That's not going to go away. But it's their ability to keep the puck in the net, out of the net, I should say. That's going to be the question mark. All right, we're down to our last 2 teams, arguably the top 2 teams on paper going into this division this year. Certainly they were last year, the New York Islanders. What else can you say? I said last year they'd regress, right? So much for that, right? Barry Trott's making me look stupid there, essentially, which he's capable of doing because he's that good of a head coach. We know that. He's an elite head coach in this league. And I'm in that same boat where coming into this year, I got to think they may not be as good, but I'm not going to come out and say they're not going to be as good because I went to that, well last year and I paid the price for it. I'm not underestimating this team. I'm not underestimating Barry Trotz anymore. And look, they're going to have Anders Lee, their captain, back, who missed a lot of last year, playing with Barzal and Kyle Palmieri, who they'll have a full season with now after getting him at the deadline last year. Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey. You lose a couple of key pieces, from last year's group, and a team that's now been, gotten to the beaten by Tampa Bay 2 years in a row, essentially, in the conference finals. No shame in that. They ended up losing to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Lightning each of the last 2 years. But, they lose Jordan Eberle. They lose Nick Leddy on the blue line. But they bring in Zdeno Chara. Interesting. At this stage of his career, Zdeno Chara not ready to pack it in yet. He's still back in the NHL and now on this Islanders team this year for them. They also bring in Zach Parise, of course, who finally parting ways with the Minnesota Wild. And they're going to have to hope, in a third line role. That's where they're probably going to have Parise slotted in for this Islanders team, playing with J.G. Pajot and Oliver Wahlstrom. And keep an eye on Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom really showed some flashes of being a bona fide offensive contributor last year for this Islanders team. So, look, they're they're sound, they're structured, they play terrific team defense, they're very well coached. Pelech, Pulock, Green, Mayfield, Chara, Dobson, the blue line. A lot of these guys like Pulock, Pelech, Mayfield, Dobson, they're only going to get better because now they've got even more experience and playoff experience under them. And then in goal, I think they're solid with the combination of Sorokin and Varlamov this year. So, they're going to be very good again. Playoff team, potentially deep playoff run again. I made the mistake of underestimating them last year, thinking they'd regress, they'd fall back. It did not happen. Couldn't have been further from the truth. I'm not making the mistake again. Should be a very solid hockey team once again. Alex, what do you think, New York Islanders?
Yeah, you pretty much covered it as a whole there. Another team that's going to make the playoffs. They're going to do the same old in the regular season. Not going to have much to do with them as far as, totals are concerned, because sometimes they can score 4 goals. Sometimes they can win a game 1-0. So I see that being kind of their same mode of operation. One thing you want to look at, though, is they open up the season with 15 straight road games before they get to their new home out in the Belmont area. The date that I have circled, obviously their opener at home is November 20th against Calgary. I have November 21st circled against Toronto. That's a game that I'm going to be betting on Toronto for sure. I think that everything kind of, collapses down on them after being on the road that long. They have the few days, they play that home game, and they have to turn right back around and play a top-tier team. That's definitely a bet-on spot for Toronto, a fade spot for the Islanders. So make sure to circle that on your calendar.
Yeah, there's no question about that. That is a hellacious gauntlet of a schedule that the New York Islanders have. Road heavy early in the season. Keep an eye on that. We'll see if they can get out of that 500 or even slightly above 500 or maybe just below 500. That's actually pretty good. If you're the New York Islanders, you'll take that. So keep an eye on that very tough road heavy early season schedule for them. Jimmy, what do you think of the Islanders?
I'm with you guys. I mean, look, that's a great point by Alex there. Keep, that opening road trip. It might be the longest road trip in the history of the NHL. I'd have to look it up. But, that's going to affect them. And that's a great call by you, Alex. Towards the end of that, they're just going to want to get home to their own beds. They're going to want to settle in. They're going to be excited about the new rink and looking ahead to that. It's a great, opportunity there to capitalize on what would likely be a mental lapse for the Islanders at that point. However, other than that, I love this team, guys. I think the Chara move was great. It's going to help them a lot with those kids in that locker room. Just brings more grit, more leadership to a team that's already pretty rich in it. I love Sorokin in between the pipes. I like the defense. They're going to miss Leddy. There's no arguing about that. They are going to miss Leddy, guys. I think he was one of the most underrated guys in the NHL the last couple of years. He was a big part of that team. He obviously wasn't what he was in his Stanley Cup years with Chicago, but he was a big part of that Islanders team, helped them move the puck, helped them generate chances. I know they're looking right now for defensive help in that respect, more of an offensive guy, a puck-moving guy. If they can get him, this team is really lethal. They are a Stanley Cup contender. So I think it's, as far as the Metro goes, I think, and it's going to be great. It's either the Rangers or the Islanders take this division. And I think Philly will be behind them there. I think those are my 3 playoff teams in the Metro division.
There you go. Exactly. And yeah, exactly. Seattle and the Islanders are in the same boat. You know, they're starting on the road early on just so that they can let this new arenas get finished and be ready for the opening.
Except the Islanders have been one game from the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. That being said, guys, going back to how we started the show, and I was thinking about this as I was just speaking. Another thing to note about the Islanders, though, that we have to watch early on is they're in the same boat as Tampa, where they played so far. And let's face it, out of all those teams that made it to the Final Four, they're probably the most physical, and they play a grinding game. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. How will Anders Lee respond? That could catch up to them a bit, combined with that road trip. So it is going to be a bit of survival for them in the first quarter, but I think they come out on top. They've got one of, if not the best coaches in the game. So I like the Islanders a lot this year. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see them finally make it over the hump and get to the Stanley Cup final.
There we go. Definitely not underestimating them again. All they do is find a way, great team game, goaltender out.
They are the New England Patriots dynasty on ice without the championships.
That's right. That's the only thing they're missing is a few, and not Super Bowls, but Stanley Cups in this case. Absolutely. That's all they're missing right now. All right. The very final team on this Eastern Conference preview show. We thank everybody for joining us today. The Carolina Hurricanes. Yes. A team that we've loved for the last couple of years. I really liked them a lot last year. A little bit of a changeover, though, this year for the Carolina Hurricanes based on their off-season activity. A lot of guys out. Shockingly, Alex Nedeljkovic gone. In fact, basically all three goaltenders that were on their roster last year were jettisoned out. Alex Nedeljkovic gone. Peter Mrazek gone. James Reimer gone. Dougie Hamilton on the blue line gone. Warren Fogle, Brock McGinn, Cedric Paquette, Jake Bean, Morin Geekie, Yoni Hakanpää. I mean, a lot of changeover on this roster and a personnel turnover for the Carolina Hurricanes. But they bring in some interesting pieces. Brendan Smith, veteran blue liner. Ethan Bear comes in from the Edmonton Oilers. Ian Cole, another veteran blue liner to help out with this team. Their blue line definitely still could be quite good. Slavin and Pesce are excellent. They were last year. Shea is solid. D'Angelo's the wild card, right? Is his head on straight? We have to wait and see on that. He's got offensive upside, skates well, but is he going to be mentally screwed up again? Or is he going to be focused? Or is he going to settle down now that he's with Carolina? Because obviously that's why the Rangers said goodbye to him. They had enough of his antics and tomfoolery. And now we'll see if he can get rid of that type of behavior here in Carolina. Cole and Bear, solid additions, no doubt about that. So they've got some still solid defensive depth, but I can't be totally sure they're as good in net because I like Mrazek. I like Nedeljkovic. And Frederik Andersen's had a nice career. Of course, they signed him, a free agent in the offseason. Toronto decided not to bring him back. Had his worst injury-riddled season last year. Most injuries ever. He's now 31, played a lot of games. He's a guy that had his worst year statistically last year. And people are saying, well, you played for the Leafs. The Leafs were a lot better defensive hockey team last year. They were an elite penalty-killing team. That narrative doesn't fly to me. That Frederik Andersen played in front of the Leafs. Oh, that's why he didn't play well. He played poorly. And it wasn't the team in front of him. That was one of the better Leaf defensive teams in years, and they had a great penalty kill. And now we got to trust Freddie Andersen to play better this year, a year older, injuries mounting. That's the big question mark. And Carolina's got a lot of changes on the blue line, and it may take time for everybody to assimilate and get comfortable in chemistry on the back end with so many new faces now on the blue line for Carolina. So I think there's question marks. And then the other option is Antti Ranta for the Carolina Hurricanes, who if I'm not mistaken, didn't I just see him give up 7 goals the other night in a preseason game against the Nashville Predators? I mean, it was ugly. It was terrible in that game. And he's a guy, again, injuries. He's been in and out of the lineup. He's been inconsistent. He's had some great games. He's had some shaky games. So I don't know if Carolina's as good in net. In fact, I'm willing to bet they aren't as good in net this year, the Carolina Hurricanes. This is another team, kind of like Montreal we talked about in the Atlantic. I think they become an over team this year, the Carolina Hurricanes, because up front, you have to like their ability to score goals with Niederreiter, with Aho, with Marty Necas, who really came on strong last year. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, they steal him with the offer sheet from the Montreal Canadiens, with Trocheck and Teravainen and Svechnikov, and Jordan Staal had an offensive reemergence, I guess you can say, last year, that team's going to be able to score. They've got a solid 9 forwards in their top 3 lines, guys, that can score. And I think you're going to see that this year. The blue line's got a lot of change. Maybe they're going to be good in time, but I think it could take time. With you have that many new faces on the blue line, you're not going to have that chemistry immediately. And I don't think their goaltending's as good. So for me, Carolina's a wait and see. I'd probably actually lean toward more bets against them, but more than anything, totals is what I'm aiming at with Carolina, over the total in their games. I think they're going to score and they're going to give up more this year as well. Alex, your thoughts on the Carolina Hurricanes?
Yeah, they're definitely going to be an over team for sure. They have an abundance of offense. They got some question marks on defense. And, if they're looking for sponsors, they might want to give the Sealed Air Company a call, because they're going to need some bubble wrap for those 2 goaltenders. They have Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta, 2 guys that just cannot stay healthy for the life of them, especially Raanta. I mean, this is a guy who had tremendous upside when he came over originally in the league from Chicago. And then he went to New York, and now he's in Arizona. He could not stay healthy. So we'll see a fortune change for him. With Anderson, I think he's going to have a bit of an emergence or a reemergence, because the pressure of being in Toronto is off of him now. I think it's going to be a lot easier as far as the media goes, obviously dealing with media in Carolina than it will be in Toronto. And I think that kind of clears his head a little bit, and we'll see him, play better. This is a Carolina team. I feel like they back their way to the playoffs. They'll get a wild card spot, but they're going to have to outgun most of the teams, night after night to get wins.
All right, Jimmy, what do you think, Carolina?
Yeah, I didn't get the goaltending thing either, guys. I don't think they got even close to better. They got a lot worse between the pipes, like you said.
Cheap.
Yep, exactly.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, look, we made an offer sheet. We're not cheap. Whatever. Let's see what you have to do next year when you got the likes of Trocheck and who's that other guy? I'm going to murder his name. Is it Nekis or Nikas?
Necas, yep. Marty Necas, yep.
He's a free agent coming up, and they've got 2 other big guys I can't think of off the top of my head. Just horrible cap management. Because what are you going to tell KK now? You're going to tell me he's going to get less this year because you were just trying to be an immature little brat and get revenge for what Montreal did to you 2 years ago with Ahu? What a joke. Like, I'm serious, guys. That was straight from the owner. I feel really bad for Don Waddell. His hands are tied there. That team is being run by a renegade owner, and they're on the wrong track. They could have been going up instead of down, and they just keep hurting themselves. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They're in trouble. I would bet the over, and I would bet against them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've got these concerns for sure this year with this Carolina team. Defensively, goaltending's way more shaky than it was last year, in my opinion. And I think their blue line could be good in time, because I like some of the names. Ian Cole, Ethan Bear brought in on this blue line. But Brendan Smith as well for veteran defenseman who's good stay-at-home physical defenseman. But there's just so many new faces on the blue line. You're not going to be clicking, I think, and rolling on all cylinders right away. And then you've got Anderson and Raanta, both question marks in goal. So definitely consensus that, they're going to have to score goals if they're going to win games, especially early in the season. There you go, guys. Atlantic Division, Metropolitan Division. That is your Eastern Conference betting preview right here on the Ice Guys. But more than anything, it's just great to be back. It's great to see Alex's face again, Jimmy's face again, and be able to talk to them once again about hockey. And it's great to have everybody that watches the show live on YouTube and downloads the Ice Guys podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network joining us as well. We appreciate it. A reminder that we will be back tomorrow on Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, with the Western Conference betting preview show for the upcoming season. And then we will begin our daily 7 days a week Ice Guys show format starting next Tuesday, opening day of the season, October 12th. We'll be on 2 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday, all season long. And then we will be on at noon Eastern on Saturdays and Sundays. We're going to have special guests galore throughout the course of the year as well. Former hockey players, viewers, and listeners of the show, you name it. We're going to have a bunch of special guests. We've got a little surprise planned for later this month as well that we'll get into more next week. So very, very excited about what's on deck here for the Ice Guys moving forward. And we're great to be back for another season and our first full season in conjunction with and partnered with the Hockey Podcast Network and DraftKings as well. Make sure you check it out. Promo code THPN. Support the sponsors that support the channel, that supports the show, and everybody's happy at the end of the day. For Alex B. Smith and Jimmy Murphy, I'm Ian Cameron. Great to be back, and we will see you and talk to you again Friday for the Western Conference season preview show from a betting perspective right here on the Ice Guys. Have a great day. We'll
Go
talk
Red
to you again.
Sox, go White Sox.
There you go. A little go Red Sox from Jimmy Murphy as they prepare to take on the Tampa Bay Rays. Thanks for watching our season premiere and our Eastern Conference preview. We'll be back on Friday with the Western Conference preview show, courtesy of the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.